Herzlich willkommen zum zweiten Teil des heutigen Tagungstages. Wem auch immer wir das zu verdanken haben, wir müssen wirklich Danke sagen, denn das Wetter scheint sich tatsächlich auf unsere Seite zu schlagen. Die finale Entscheidung, ob es das Cityradeln geben wird, ist noch nicht getroffen, aber die Chancen stehen sehr, sehr gut. Jetzt noch eine kurze Vorabinformation für all jene, die am Mobimeter-Gewinnspiel teilgenommen haben. Teilgenommen hat automatisch jeder, der sich die App heruntergeladen hat. Die Verlosung ist erfolgt, allerdings haben wir ein bisschen Schwierigkeiten, die Gewinner zu kontaktieren. Daher die Bitte, morgen in der Mittagspause, jeder, der sich die Mobimeter-App heruntergeladen hat, kurz morgen in der Mittagspause vorbeischauen beim Stand vom Mobility Lab Salzburg und Graz und Salzburg. Und da werden die Gewinner bekannt gegeben, verlost werden 20 hochwertige Fahrradschlösser. So, wir sind beim zweiten Teil der Keynotes angelangt und jetzt geht es um die Frage, was haben die Städte Graz, Ljubljana und Groningen gemeinsam? Bei allen dreien handelt es sich um Städte mit einer sehr ähnlichen Bevölkerungsdichte, mit einer sehr ähnlichen Topografie. Und man könnte jetzt annehmen, dass es dann auch eine ähnliche Dichte beim Radverkehr geben könnte. Allerdings ist dem nicht so. Das heißt, trotz ähnlichen Rahmenbedingungen hat sich der Radverkehr in diesen drei Städten völlig unterschiedlich im Laufe der Zeit entwickelt. Heute und morgen wird das Thema sein, wo liegen die Unterschiede, wo die Gemeinsamkeiten und was kann die eine von der anderen Schwesternstadt lernen. Den Anfang bei den Keynotes heute Nachmittag macht Robert Huigen, ich habe das geübt, mit seinem Vortrag Help Too Many Bikes, Hilfe zu viele Fahrräder. Das ist natürlich ein Problem, von dem andere Städte nur träumen können. Robert Huigen arbeitet als leitender politischer Berater für die Stadt Groningen, die Schwesternstadt von Graz und eine der Fahrradhauptstädte der Niederlande. Die Stadt Groningen ist Vorreiterin, wenn es darum geht, Fahrräder und Alltagsradverkehr in der Stadtplanung zu berücksichtigen. Groningen hat schon 1977 Autos weitgehend aus der gesamten Innenstadt entfernt und das Rad wurde zum Hauptverkehrsmittel. Diese Vorgehensweise wird grundsätzlich als Erfolg verbucht und versetzt Groningen heute in die Lage, mit Problemen zu kämpfen, die, wie gesagt, andere Städte nur zu gerne hätten, nämlich viel zu viele Fahrräder. Robert Huigen mit seinem Vortrag. As you like. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is this one working? Yes. As said, Robert Huigen, close enough, I think, from the city of Groningen, which was also almost correct. Let me try this one. Excellent. Help too many bikes. First of all, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It is an honor and a pleasure to contribute to this Radgipfel, especially since it's in Graz, which is our sister city since 1964. I hope it's the beginning of more collaborations to come, as I experienced that Graz is rather friendly for cyclists, even from my perspective, being from Groningen. We'd love to learn from your experience and perhaps share at this moment and maybe later on some of ours, if it is of any help at all. Yes, this is what I'm going to tell you. First, a short introduction of Groningen, the geography and the main characteristics. And then I will try to explain how we got to the state we're in at the moment. And I will guide you through 4 decades of urban planning, planning a compact city. And by that way, creating favorable conditions for cycling along the way. And I will conclude with the challenges that we are facing as a city, and these are partly due to the strategic choices that we made during these decades. But first, the city of Groningen. This is the Brugstraat, as we call it, the Bridge Street. It's a secondary shopping street, and it's in the historical center. And this photo is taken on a sunny day, so a lot of people were out on their bikes, and the photographer took the picture moments after the bridge closed again. And this usually works quite well, organically, most of the times, almost always. So Groningen, we're located in the north of the Netherlands. We're, I think, a typical medium-sized European town, 230,000 inhabitants. We have a young population, average age is 36 years, and more than half of the people are under 35. This is, of course, due to having 60,000 students in the city, of which a substantial number are foreign. We're the fifth largest city of the Netherlands, and we're the largest city in the northern part of the country, surrounded by a rural area where there are villages and towns, but we're the real center of the north, which means it's a thriving community. And it also means that we have a catchment area of about 1 million people. As I said, a compact city. And we're intentionally so a compact city. If you were to draw a 3-kilometer zone around the historical center, you would find a rather large portion of the people both living and working within this area. And well, if your strategy is to realize as big a model shift as possible, we think that short distances help. It's not all you need, but it's a good start, I think. Yes, this is the map, what it looks like on a map. We have a, let's see if this works. Yes, T-shaped highway structure over here. Ring road over here. Waterways, of which one is on the European TEN-T comprehensive network, so main waterway. Main railway station over here, and a few more. And the red areas you see, like this one, and this bigger one, and maybe also this one, we're not sure yet. And of course this huge one over here. These are the urban development zones. So as you can see, we don't choose to locate them, for example, over here, but we keep it close to the city. They are mostly old industrial zones, and particularly this one is an old sugar factory, which is out of use. We used to have 2, now we have 1, and this one we will use for building new homes. Let's zoom in. On this zoomed in map, I will show you the elements that are relevant for the rest of the story. So you better pay attention for the sheet, because otherwise you won't get the rest of it. There's the medieval city over here, historical center. It is, we have 2 main squares. This one is the Grote Markt, this one is the Vismarkt or fish market. And the main railway station connecting to Amsterdam here. And there are 2 secondary railway stations, this one and this one. And there are 3 more railway stations, but they are on the wish list, so to speak. And again, the red zones for development. And just to give you some feel, the distance from the fish market to the entrance of this development area is 2 kilometers. So this is 2. This is our main bicycle network. I will address it in detail later on. I hope you can see it, but all the yellow lines are cycling routes. This is our model split. Yeah, I will explain it a bit. It says 65% bicycles, but it is actually 65% slow traffic, so bicycles and pedestrians. It's due to the fact that we derived it from a traffic model, and there are new ways to research if it's what is the exact split between cycling and pedestrians. We put them together because for us it doesn't really matter if it's because it's roughly 2/3, 1/3. So it would be instead of 65% cycling, it will be 46 or I don't know. So it's still very high. And for planning purposes, we always use two. We use the model split within Groningen, in which the cycling and walking has a very high share, big share. And we use the inbound and outbound traffic model split, where you can see that cycling is only 12%. And these diagrams tell us that there is still a lot of potential for a model shift on longer distances, which is good because there are electric bikes now. We're very happy with the way things are going so far, and we strongly believe that the long tradition of compact, cycle-friendly planning is an important contributing factor to the results so far. But there are challenges too, and we'll get to the challenges later. But first I would like to give a short overview of 4 decades of, we believe, cycle-friendly urban planning. And I will do it by showing you 2 milestones. The first one is somewhat similar to what I heard this morning in the 80s about that very good plan you had in Graz. It's our traffic circulation plan of 1977. In the 1950s and 60s, cars got more and more dominant, as everywhere in Europe, and it got so dominant up until the point where most of the public space was dedicated to accommodating cars, either driving cars or parked vehicles. And in Groningen, and I think in other cities as well, there were even breakthroughs planned for which historical buildings had to be torn down. And something that's unimaginable nowadays, but in those times it was quite normal to have these plans and execute them. And these pictures are all taken in and around the city center, but I guess this could just as well be Graz or Magdeburg, but it is Groningen. This was the Grote Markt in those days, one of the 2 main squares, and it was designed as a kind of roundabout bus station car park. And if you look very carefully, you will see some bikes and some pedestrians. It was not a very pleasant place to be, I think. Same story for the fish market. It was, as you can see, it was all prosperity and freedom of mobility, and people were very happy with their cars. And then, in 1977, with a partly left-wing administration in power, a radical plan was thought out and executed. There was a lot of heated and intense debate beforehand and after, but on September the 18th, the city government announced the traffic circulation plan of Groningen. At least so I heard, because I was 9.5 months old, and traffic circulation was not really just on my mind yet, but this is what I've been told. So this was the situation up until September the 18th. Then this was thought of, traffic circulation plan. And it was, the center was divided into 4 sectors, north, south, east and west. And cars couldn't go through. So the through traffic for cars used to be through the center, and now it wasn't anymore. So you could reach a sector, but you couldn't go through. So where you were following the green line before, going through the city center. You now had to take the inner ring around the canals to go from south to north. It's quite common now, but in those days it was very revolutionary before fighting. And this is what it looked like when they implemented it. This was on September the 19th. It was announced on the 18th, and it was executed in one night, so overnight. And people were, well, a bit confused, to say the less. They had to take physical measures, which were not very subtle. Concrete barriers over here, but you can also see that there was already, there used to be cars over here, and there was already much more space to cycle, and there were more pedestrians in the city center. So it was quite successful, even though shop owners at the beginning were very angry because they were fearing a loss of clients, because they said they can't reach our shops by car, so we will lose them. And then after a while they did some research, and it turned out that the net turnover in the historical center increased, and of course there was a model shift. That's the first example. The second one is the Noorderplantsoen, as we call it. Yeah, it's located over here in the on the northwestern fringe of the city center. It's part of the old fortifications. Turned into a major road, actually. That was in the 1980s. It was a major road for cars, and plans were made to turn it into a bicycle lane and park, but they couldn't get them through. And what they did in 1993 is start a pilot project where they, with a temporary closure for cars, and then hold a referendum in 1994, and 51%, just enough, was in favor of closing the park for cars permanently. And it, of course, caused a huge increase of cyclists in the park, 30% up. The temporary closure looks like this, also not very subtle, but highly effective. And then it became a proper city park, looking like this. Recreational hotspot, which is quite necessary if you have 60,000 students living in your city. And it's a sunny day, of which we have more and more each year. These two milestones, I hope, serve as an example of the change that took place. It was a slow change, a change in attitude. We were shifting away from being a car-oriented town towards slowly becoming a compact city with walking and cycling at the core of its urban planning. And these were the big steps. So there were a few big steps. And, but there also were a lot of small steps in the right directions, and some small steps in the wrong direction. And the message I would like to send to you is that it's not a matter of going Dutch or being very smart at engineering your city for cyclists. It's just you need a good start like you had in the 80s, and then you need to follow up, and it's hard work. And sometimes you're successful and sometimes you're not. But if you're wrestling and trying for 40 years or more, then yes, the model shift will turn in favor of cyclists. So I'm sure that if you will continue for 30 years more, that you will have the same result. So it's actually nothing special that we did. We just had a bit of a head start, actually. But it is an integral part of urban planning nowadays. In 2019, so today, urban planning in Groningen is much more bicycle friendly than it was in 1977, of course. And again, we plan big new developments as close to the center as possible, even though it's more costly and it's more time-consuming. So that's the change in attitude. We accept the fact that it's taking us longer and it's going to cost us more money, but we really want it to be close to the center so you can keep the model split as it is. An important goal is to regain public space, so take cars out of the street. And we do that by making car parking in public space less, I couldn't find the English word, but it's less selbstverständlich. I hope you understand what I mean. We are now, for example, thinking about a new traffic circulation plan, but it will not be for the historical city center because we already have one over there, but it will be for the area within the ring road, which is quite large. It's this whole area. I don't know how many people it will affect, but possibly more than half. So we are thinking about a new huge traffic circulation plan to see if that will reduce the number of cars in Groningen. Cycling. We also cycle. As I showed before the model split, we developed a 10-year cycling strategy together with engineering. And it was adopted by the City Council with unanimous vote in 2015. And it has a budget of 85 million euros for 10 years. So we can do things, I guess, 85 million. And the emphasis is no longer on realizing a more favorable model split, but it's more on product improvements. Making cycling more attractive. I sound like Donald Trump, I know, but that's what's the philosophy behind it. Making cycling more attractive and more fun even. And improve on what you already achieved. And what are those achievements? Cycling is in our veins when it comes to mobility planning and projects. And I dare to say that there's no politician in Groningen who's brave or stupid enough to be against cycling as the main mode of transport, because it's that incorporated in the system. And the network may not be perfect, but we've come a long way, and it's quite dense, and it stretches out to cycling highways. You will hear something about it later on. And there's time and money to experiment with new techniques. I will quickly go through a few slides to show it. It's by saying it's part of our DNA. I mean, we have a mantra in Groningen politics and Verwaltung as well. And it is that you walk or cycle when you can, or you take public transport. And if you really need to, you go by car. That's how we start planning. And there's still room for cars. Nobody will force you to collect a fridge on a rainy day with a cargo bike. But it is about cycling. Our main bicycle network, we're content with our network, but we will keep developing it. And the goals are to create a dense network with connections to the surrounding areas and also connections between important locations. So this is the Martini Hospital, and here, somewhere over here, here it is. We have a park and ride, so we will do our utmost. This is a missing link to create a good connection between this park and ride and the hospital over here. And the same for other places, university, inner city, and another university hospital. We're trying to create logical and direct routes for cyclists in separate bicycle lanes if possible and if it makes any sense at all. We also try to improve the position and share of cycling in the chain of mobility. For example, by improving the possibilities for cycling to and from park and ride locations, as I just showed you. We achieved cycling being an integral part of mobility planning. And this particular example is the underground bicycle parking. We call it the city balcony, because you can stand on top of it, with a capacity of 5,500 bikes. And it was added to the railway station 10 years ago as a specific project. You can park your bike there for free. It's open 24 hours a day. And together with other places where you can park your bike, the capacity is 10,000, but it's not enough. Probably because we have a lot of students parking their bikes there. However, the train station will be redesigned to accommodate more trains. So what we thought is, why not build a tunnel under the railway station, and it will be designated to cycling, to bikes. So cycling tunnel. And if you're building a cycling tunnel, you might as well add an extra underground bike parking. And by doing this, we will upgrade the capacity of the railway station area, train station area, to 17,000, which is a lot, I think. But Amsterdam and Utrecht, and they have a lot more capacity in the area. As I said, there's also room to experiment with new techniques, novelties. This is one we like, green light for all directions. So everybody has a green light at the same time. And since it's so busy, it will create a situation where you have to make eye contact because nobody has the right of way. So if you want to cross safely, you make eye contact and you basically behave like a civilized human being, and it works quite well. So maybe that would be a good experience in Graz, experiment in Graz as well. It works and it creates more green time for bikes, but also for cars. So everybody benefits. Last example is the park and ride and biking. We have park and ride locations like any town in Europe. And we're adding bike sharing, public bike parking and private bike storing to the park and ride locations. And we do this to give commuters the opportunity to either cycle to the park and ride and then take a bus into the city, or the other way around. So you take a bus to the park and ride and then you cycle through. And that's possible because you can park your bike there overnight. Then the challenges we're facing: help too many bikes. We're happy, but we also noticed that we've reached a point where we might be exceeding the limits of what a chosen strategy of a compact city and being bicycle friendly can handle. And what we see is that all the bikes are crowding streets at times, and they're creating small Fahrradstaus during peak hours. And you need to wait 2 times before you get a green light because it's too busy to get through the first time. And at the same time, we'd like to intensify the city even further, as I showed you the red development zones. So 20,000 homes and 15,000 jobs in the city, within the limits of the city. And then it's already crowded because of all the bikes. And this means that decisions over public space will get tougher. There's more competition for public space. And questions we're asking ourselves is there a limit to how bike-friendly the road network can be? Should we stop being any more bike-friendly? Is it a right to park your bicycle anywhere you want to? Or should you be restricted? And how do we integrate electric cycling in the network with difference in speed getting larger, for example, speed pedelecs? To conclude the presentation, I will show you a few examples of the things I just mentioned. Design. I just heard an hour ago that we are famous for creating absurd technical designs, and I think this is a fine first-class example of this urge. What we see here is a bicycle roundabout. So bicycles have the right of way. If you come from this direction, you can turn right freely. And cars have to go like this. So they are really a guest here. And you can also go here to the supermarkets. Sometimes it's just a matter of design, painting some red paint on the tarmac. Smart mobility, this is the green light for all directions, but the traffic lights have also waiting time prediction, and we have traffic lights that have rain sensors, which means that you have less waiting time if it rains, because you can wait for green light in your car staying dry, and when you're on your bike, you deserve a speedy travel to your work, so less green time for bikes when it rains. Accessibility and safety is sometimes a problem because bicycles can cause dangerous situations. When you park them en masse at the main market square, for example, emergency services can't get through, which causes dangerous situations. And again, sometimes the solution is very simple. What we did is create a pop-up bike parking, which is no more than sticking some yellow tape to the ground, and have some people in yellow jackets, so-called bike stewards, asking people in a friendly manner to park in the middle of the square. And this is the result. And it was an experiment, but it was so successful that we will repeat it on other places and try if it works over there as well when it's crowded. And we found that cyclists may be anarchists, but they're also friendly people. So if you ask them to park somewhere else, they will mostly do it. And also the bike stewards are very well-trained people, so they're quite intimidating sometimes. Here you can see the yellow tape even better. And then, this is a bit difficult. Because this is a challenge that we haven't found a solution for yet. We have parked bikes everywhere, especially in a historical city center. They park everywhere, so also in place when there's no space to park your bike, and also where there's no space to create a pop-up bike parking. And as I said, it can get dangerous, but it can also spoil the experience of visiting Groningen. If on a busy Saturday afternoon, bikes are blocking your way and you can't reach the shop, which used to be quite a problem. And I know this is a beautiful picture, or at least I like it, because it has it's nice. It's well taken, good photographer. But sometimes it's just annoying, and you don't see the square anymore because it's all bikes. And before I start to sound like a grumpy old man, we are happy with our bikes. We love them. We went through a lot of trouble to get here, so we're happy that we're here. Because we used to be this. This is between the main market square, the Grote Markt, and the fish market. And now we're this. It's the same location. And it works. It may look a bit chaotic, but it works. And I don't know if this works, but no. Can somebody put it up again? And push the play button? Yes, there is one. Yes, a stop motion. This was last Saturday. And here's the yellow jacket. He's the bicycle steward. As you can see, you don't mess around with him. So this is Groningen 2019. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
This was a wonderful, fascinating, and very motivating presentation. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The thing is, due to time issues,
Yes.
I will ask you to take a seat and then call you up again together with the second presenter to answer the questions from the audience, if that's fine for you.
Not a problem at all.
Wonderful. Wir müssen natürlich ein bisschen auf die Zeit schauen, aber nachdem diese Präsentation wirklich eine ist, wo, glaube ich, alle noch Fragen haben werden, wird es eine gemeinsame Fragerunde geben, und zwar nach der zweiten Keynote-Präsentation. Das heißt, bitte, bitte schreiben Sie sich Ihre Frage jetzt auf und stellen Sie sie im Anschluss. Wir kommen nämlich sofort zur zweiten Keynote-Präsentation von einer Dame, deren Name ich auch üben musste, aber das ist mir ein bisschen besser gelungen, Agalée Degros, mit einer sehr internationalen Geschichte. Die Dame stammt ursprünglich aus Luxemburg, unterrichtet jetzt an der Technischen Universität Graz. Und zwar ist sie Professorin und Vorsitzende des Instituts für Städtebau. Im Jahr 2001 gründete sie gemeinsam mit Stefan Benedikt das Büro Art Engineering, das sich der Verbesserung der Beziehung zwischen Landschaft, Stadt und Infrastruktur widmet. Radfahrstrategie für kleine und mittelgroße Städte, wir lernen von Vlaanderen, ist ihr Thema. Normalerweise haben Städte in dieser Größe, kleine und mittelgroße Städte, einfach andere finanzielle und personelle Ressourcen und können sich daher nicht mit großen Städten wie zum Beispiel Amsterdam oder Kopenhagen vergleichen. Was kann man von diesen beiden kleinen Städten lernen, deren Größe mit der vieler österreichischer Städte vergleichbar ist? Bitte einen Applaus für Agalée Degros.
I will use this. Yeah, okay, fine. I would like to invite you. I will speak in English, and I will invite you to go from a very, I will say, idyllic model split from 60% bicycle in Groningen to less idyllic, from 12% in Belgian Zenf, it's north of Belgium, model split, to invite you to go. And I will make this journey through several steps during this lecture. First, to start, I corrected a bit the model split from Groningen, sorry. I split it between the pedestrian and the bicycle, and we see then it's not 60, but it's almost 40%. That helps already to go to the 12%. Most of the work I will present you comes from the work my office and the office from Stefan Bendix, Art Engineering, did do for the several cities in the Netherlands, and then we will jump to Belgium. Those are several of those cities, and you see this strategical study for Groningen. In Groningen, what is interesting is that the strategy is very powerful and very clear also. Cycle first, a coherent bicycle network, space for bicycle, and a tailored bicycle parking. We just saw some example. And the last is more cultural. It goes about this history of the bicycle in Groningen. I think what will be very interesting for us in the region here and in Austria is this coherent bicycle network. Robert did present you the main network, which of course should be good in a city. Yes, we could say it's for the one that had some information about this bicycle strategy, it will be the C network. Yeah. Now, they are missing link in this network, and it's very important that they are recognized and that we take care of those missing links. Yes, they are called here bottlenecks. It's very important to make a coherent network. We shouldn't avoid the problem, we should face them. The third point is to make what in Groningen we did call smart routes. It means that if we want to make long distance road, we should also see that it related something with something. Robert mentioned the hospital, but it could be also a big company, or it could be a place for leisure, or even a university. Because those provide a critical mass of cyclists that will further this, that will develop even this long distance network. I think if there is something we can learn from Groningen is this approach. Now again about those missing links. Of course, it's not because we do long distance network and we work this missing link, like you can see here, it's a kind of scheme of grads with those blue missing link, that they should be all the same. It's not because we have one category in the network that all along this category, the different piece of this path should be the same. Here an example from the surroundings of Nijmegen in the Netherlands. You see that a missing link could be very easily done. It's just here a former agricultural path transformed in bicycle path. But it could be very different in the city. It has not to be a very strict two-direction lane for bicycle. We could also imagine that we use this instrument of bicycle street. We see there is different interpretations that are possible from those long distance bicycle paths. Now let's go to a modal split of 20%. That will be around the modal split from Graz also. It's Rotterdam. It's also work the office was commissioned for, to look at, okay, we have a good network in this city for the distance of 7 kilometers, but what about this distance of 15 kilometers, which is the distance that a e-bike can now perform? Of course, we have to make at this scale of 15 kilometers, we have again to make a hierarchy in the network and look for which are the main roads. The problem is that when we go to a distance of 15 kilometers, and that's in every city, we encounter a lot of barriers because we build up the train tracks, we build up the highways in this distance between the 7 and the 15 kilometers. In Rotterdam also you have a lot of water. Then if we cross this network of long distance paths and those barriers, we see immediately that we have a lot of conflict points. We see the white one, they concern the local network, and the red one, they concern this long distance network. Basically, we can see that those barriers, they are problems, but we can see them also as a part of the solution. Those, again, this a bit schematic plan of Graz with the barrier from the city. We can imagine that we have an infrastructure, and we have some examples, like along the water, that we have an infrastructure of pathways that are built up along those barriers. Well, the point, if we build along the barrier, is that it means that we have problems when they are intersecting. And often those barriers, they intersect on different levels. That means that there is a work of finding solution for going from one level to another one with the bike. And we see here an example, the office design, which is a kind of integrated in the landscape. And this is another example to go from one level to another one on a very beautiful and special way made by the Bureau Next architect. Now we go to 15% bicycle and we jump to Belgium. Reusing the leftover of the infrastructure, then reusing the space that those barriers produce is a strategy that is also used in the case of Leuven. We see here that, of course, there is not the same profusion of those long distance way. Here, in this case of Leuven, there are only 2, but they are continue, and they are also along, then, in this case, the rail tracks. We see here that the leftover from the rail track is transformed into a long-distance bicycle path. Again, it requires to think really carefully how those paths, when there is a conflict, how they encounter the other barrier. Here it's a kind of big and quite very well-used street. We see here that in this solution there is a choice for an underneath passage. Of course, it's expensive, but of course also this connection is a kind of pilot for the city, and that's very important because, as you could see it was along the track, and it connects not only the periphery of the city, also some leisure parks with the station, and that's very important. That's why here there was an extra investment in this underneath passage. Now, we don't have to forget, when we do infrastructure, it was already talked previously, that there is not one kind of cyclist, but there are many kinds of cyclists. We don't have only to design the infrastructure for the person that wants to go fast, but we have also to design for the person that wants to interact. And it means that the design of the space is very important. I think you mentioned it. It's not only to go fast and to be safe, it's also to have some fun. It's also to have some interaction with the surroundings, and therefore the design is very important. This is the project we did build in Leuven, and we try that at the same time it's a good connection where you can go fast because you have to go to the station, but it's also a nice place. And of course, there are some cars that are the guests because it's also used for the local circulation, but it interacts with the surroundings. There is some green. Well, the green has still to grow a bit, as you can see. But there is also a kind of value, and it increases the life quality of the city. Now we go in the Flemish region, and we see that the model split is from 17%. Basically, it's not that bad for a region. If you look at Denmark, of course, Copenhagen has a very good model split, but you can see that it is 14% on a regional level. Well, the Netherlands, it's still really like with 27%, yes, then there it's better, but Belgium is not that bad. Even the Association of Cyclists, the Fietsberaad, well, you could compare it with Argus, basically. They made a survey and they discovered that the biggest difference with the Netherlands is the use of the bike to go to the train station or to come from the train station. That's why they implement quite several years ago already this network of long-distance bicycle paths that connect and that go along the rail track and that connect better the station and the surroundings and the city. But after a survey, the Association of Cyclists discovered several facts. That first, a bit like in Groningen, the bicycle is in the DNA of the people. That people really value the bicycle. That, of course, the surroundings could be more bike-friendly. That sometimes the bike behavior, they could be better, I will say. And that in the city center, there is all the time a dilemma on how do we have a bike circulation that is integrated within a street profile that are small, where we have to choose. Will that be for car, for bike, for car parking? And there, the region took a very strong position, which is called trappers, OV, and car at the end. It means that the priority goes to the pedestrian, after that to the cyclist, after that to the collective transport, and finally to the cars. Now, they also discovered that this politic of bike highways that the region implement was working well, but that they were missing of a relation between those long-distance connection and the local network. Okay, thank you. Then now, and I would like to finish with this project, which is currently running. It's an initiative from the Fietsebond, that means it is the Argus, I will say, the Association of Cyclists, and the chief architect of the region. Those both institutions, they made a call to all the cities existing in Vlaanderen, and they asked who will be interested to work in the form of workshop to improve this relation between the higher network and the more local network, and in general to increase the, I will say, the quality of life in the city. The project is called not about, it's not that much called about a bicycle infrastructure, it's called leefbuurten. It means that it's a I will say a neighborhood which is alive, and if you put one A away, it will transform it to a neighborhood which dare to do something. 10 cities answer the call. Those are 6 of them. They are located a bit everywhere, and of course the city they are meeting all together, and they look at reference projects together, and also now as an office we are organizing that together we look for contextual solution for each of those cities, but in a setting that they can also talk with each other, because we see that most of the problems, they are repeating themselves. Well, that's an example of the city of Zems, but I don't want to be too long. It's also really in progress. What is maybe important is that we try with those cities to look what could be improved, not only in the network, but also in this sharing of the space, on the aesthetic, on this transformation of the space. We use it as a tool to improve the ecology of the city, and we try with those cities to define a good process to realize this infrastructure. It means for me, to conclude, that first a region needs a very good network plan, and that it includes institutions like hospital, university, or even companies. It needs pilot projects. Even if they are a bit expensive, it's really good that you can refer. This bike highway in Leuven is a reference that is used in many cases to explain what it could be, yes? I think the region, of course, has a task to develop the network, like this long-distance network, but it has also a huge responsibility, I think, in organizing the process. It's not only, I think, giving the money to those small towns, but it's also bringing them together that they can share the information. And the last thing, but for me not the least, it's that we don't have to we don't have only to consider the network and the circulation, but we have also to consider the space and the quality that this network can bring for the living quality of a city. I would like to finish with this example of Leuven, because it's used often as a reference. What is maybe a bit less now, that at the beginning it had a lot of resistance from the inhabitants, but at the end, you should know that the immobilian value, the value of the real estate along, is now totally different than it was before. And then for many cities that answered to the call, that was a reason to participate, to not only improve the circulation, but also improve the quality of the city and the buildings. Thank you.
Please stay with us, you're not done yet. So this is your microphone now. Conquer the stage. Wir werden das jetzt folgendermaßen machen. Eine Frage für Madame Degros, eine Frage für
Robert Huigen.
Huigen. Und ich werde jetzt ausnahmsweise mal von hinten anfangen, weil vorher habe ich von vorne angefangen. Ja? Das heißt, die erste Frage für Madame Degros. In diesem Fall? Okay, dann fangen wir mit Robert Huigen an.
Huigen.
Yes, you were mentioning the problem of capacity for parking. How about bike sharing schemes? Do they play a role in Groningen?
The short answer is yes, but it's not a very big role. What we see is that most bikes are owned, and most bikes that are parked in the, especially in the city center, but also outside, are bicycles that are owned by people who live there, or if you're in the city center, it's just people who want to go to a shop, so or study there, or have a coffee, or even working there. So what I said it as a joke, but cyclists, at least in the Netherlands, are anarchists. So there's the feeling that when you're on a bike, you're the king of the road, and cars are a guest. So you always have the right of way, unless there's a red traffic light. And the same goes for bike parking. You are allowed to park your bike anywhere you want to. That's the mindset. So bike sharing does play a role, but it's not very big. I don't know if this answers your question. But yeah, we have many plans to change it. These pop-up biking, bike parking is one of the ideas that's working, but it's quite labor intensive, so it's also quite costly. And there's something that's being executed due to internet shopping and general decay of retail. There are a lot of, there used to be a lot of empty shops, and one of them is a big department store. And the ground floor or the what do you call it? Keller of this building is being used as a bike parking, but it will give you a few hundred more capacity, and you need maybe 20,000. So there was also a plan to build something similar to the railway station on the fish market, but it's simply too expensive because you also want to have be able to have a market on top of it. So measures are very expensive to park bikes, and they're not that efficient. They don't solve the problem entirely.
Thank you. Next question.
Okay. Hi. Although this is a bicycle summit, no. I was wondering, looking at your modal split of your town, it seems, yeah, both of you, I don't know who wants to answer, but I think the woman. I was wondering why there are still that many cars in your city. So there are lots of bicyclists, but there's a very low level of public transport. So on all your great pictures, there are lots of cyclists, but where are all the cars?
Ladies first.
Ladies first. In Leuven, it's really easy. The park, which was a big park place, is just removed. And in the station itself, there is a park garage, which was built there, yes? It means that the main idea is that the car that have to be parked, they have no place in the street. It's a private possession and it should be in a private building. That's the main concept. Of course, it's a long time concept, and it has to be gradually implemented. But a street with two side parking spots, that doesn't exist anymore in the Netherlands and less in Belgium. Yeah.
The cars are on the ring road because that's part of the traffic circulation plan, to push out the cars to push them out of the city center, to have them on the ring road. And you can enter the city, but you have to park somewhere in either a park house or on a park and ride, and then take a bus or a bike. And I showed you a lot of pictures of the city center, and you see a lot of bikes, and that's because a lot of the streets in the city center, which is a square kilometer, and then an area around it, is either car-free or it's very difficult to get there. So what we do is make it very attractive to go by bike rather than prohibit going by car. So that's why you don't see a lot of cars. They are there. And sometimes people just don't own cars. We don't own a car. I only have a few bikes. 4.
So there's another question for our guest from Groningen. See how I avoided the name? Huh? Not bad. So please give me your name and your question.
Hi, my name is Andreas. My question is also dedicated to Robert. You mentioned before the parking lot, which is free for all the people who park the bikes. How do you deal with all the dead bikes?
Sorry,
The dead bikes.
Dead bikes, yeah.
The bikes that nobody owns. Or the
Yeah, we call them orphan bikes because we think all bikes are alive or dead. you need people to deal with them. We have people in yellow jackets, so the bicycle stewards who deal with the dead bikes or the orphan bikes. And it's costly, but it's also, this is not really related to biking, but we use the people who are without a job and have a benefit, and we give them some working experience by by offering them a job as a bicycle steward, as a bike steward. So you remove them. You put a sticker, color-coded sticker around it, and you're allowed to park your. You used to be allowed for 21 days. I think it's 12 now. So after 12 days, they will see by the color of the sticker that's wrapped around your wheel that it's been there too long, and they will just remove it. They will bring it to an empty lot somewhere outside of the city, and you can pick up your bike for less than the cost of a new one.
Well, in Belgium, it's a bit more aggressive. In the surrounding of the station, they are just removed, and you have indeed to pay to have it back, and you have to pay for the lock also.
And also, Keller is basement. That's what I mean.
There's one more question for both of you.
Good evening, my name is Roland Romano from Argos Rad Lobby. My question goes to both of you. New developments are the minor number of housings in Austria. Most of the housings are already existing there. And my question is, do you have examples, or what is your methodology to change the traffic layout, the circulation plan of some quarters, of some living districts, in order to facilitate cycling and walking, and to make it harder to drive it straight through with a motor vehicle?
Yeah, I think first it's important to have a hierarchy of way, because that allows you to have a good mobility plan and to see where are your main roads and where are your secondary, and then of course then you can organize a kind of local traffic and a greater system. Then it's really to rethink how you share the space. I think that's the debate. That's as simple as that, is that to consider that you have a space from a facade to a facade, and you have to see what comes between those facades and reorganize according to your priority.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that by the answer you were giving, I would understand the question, but I still don't. Sorry. So could you either rephrase, or maybe you can explain to me what the question is?
Wait.
Surely go.
Okay, maybe we can simplify it. Say it in German.
I will try it again in English.
Okay.
So you have existing quarters where you want to facilitate cycling.
Yes.
And my question is, how do you realize a new traffic circulation plan in existing quarters, not in the development areas?
Yeah, with the goal of having more cyclists there. Yes. It's quite, you need brutal measures, I think, because if you want to implement a traffic circulation plan and have as a side effect have a higher share of cycling in your model split, you need to cut roads. And we call it a hard cut or a soft cut. And when you do a hard cut, you just put a barrier up, like I showed you on a picture. And if you do a soft cut, you can turn it into, for example, a bus lane or a bicycle street. So what you need to do is you need to analyze your network, then see where the points are, where you need to cut something, or you just have to make it impossible to go through, or very unattractive, and then act accordingly.
So it's 1, 2, 3 final questions, and the third to last one is from Stephanie.
I'm a cyclist, and my question would be, how big is the problem of bike theft in those countries, and what do you do about bike theft?
Bike theft? In Groningen there's something really interesting going on, because bike theft I'm getting nostalgic here. Bike theft was a big problem, but there was a kind of a bike circulation going on, where you would take an old bike to the city when you went to study, and a lot of other people had old bikes as well. It would get stolen, and then from a drug addict, you would buy a new bike, which sometimes was your own bike. So it used to be like this, and I mean, I'm being funny, but that was quite terrible. And what you see now is that there's a huge increase of bicycles with a blue front tire, which are lease bicycles. There's a company called Bike Swap, or Bicycle Swap, or Swap Fiets, we call them. And so you lease your bicycle. So your bike getting stolen is not a problem anymore because you get a new one. You pay 15 euros a month and you always have a bike to use.
Or you have a very cheap bike and it doesn't matter, or you have an expensive and you can have a kind of number and let it make an insurance for it also.
That, and maybe I can add one more thing, last thing. The pictures I showed you of the underground bike parking are also very safe because we have the people in the yellow jackets, the bike stewards, to guard the bike parking and to more or less guard your bike. It's not completely safe because there are like 4 people on a shift and you have 6,000 bikes.
Next question.
My name is Michael from Catapult, and I have a question according Groningen. Do you have an idea how many square meters the car-free center is, or how big is the percentage according to the whole town? And the second question is, do you have an idea about the politician parties in the government since 1977? Is this more or less the same, or is there a big change?
The size of the car-free city center is changing, but the whole historical medieval center is 1 square kilometer. And I would say that roughly a third to half of it is car-free, or there are just not a lot of cars there. But in general, this square kilometer is the area where you have the right of way as a bike, and you don't have a lot of cars interfering with your trip. And the second question about the political landscape of Groningen and did it change or not? There was a left-wing socialist administration in place when it was 1977, and I think Groningen, together with Nijmegen, is a city that has been fairly left-wing for a very long period. And the last elections were last year in November, and well, that election was clearly won by the Greens, Green Left, they're called. And so, yes, Groningen is, I think, on average, left-wing for quite a period already. Just like Nijmegen, which is in the Netherlands called Havana am Rijn.
So, you will have the chance to ask our presenters a lot of more questions today at the Würstelparty or at the Domenberg, so just grab them and ask them. Now, for you two, we have some presents from the city of Graz, so you will remember us. You can give me the microphone, maybe? Oh, yes. Okay, also the hand, thank you. We have a few gifts for you. This is a backpack from the city of Graz. We hope you enjoy it when you ride your bike. This is a bell with the very famous shadow of the Uhrturm. So you can take a little bit of Graz with you to Groningen. Thank you very much. So, wir kommen gleich zum letzten Programmpunkt vorher noch eine ganz kurze Ankündigung. Und zwar, morgen bitte zur Konferenz einen anderen Eingang benutzen, denn hier wird morgen früh schon aufgebaut für Muse. Das heißt, tagsüber die Radkonferenz besuchen, am Abend dann bei Muse die 90er Jahre wieder aufleben lassen. Wichtig, es ist der Eingang 2, morgen Nähe des Bankomaten, nicht an verschlossenen Türen rütteln. Und jetzt kommt die große Auflösung. Wir öffnen die Fenster. Ja, es findet statt. Wir werden zum Cityradeln gemeinsam fahren. Und das bedeutet, bitte nehmen Sie all Ihre Sachen schon mit aus der Messe. Die Messe wird dann versperrt. Wir kommen nach dem Cityradeln nicht mehr zurück. Also die Garderobe leeren, alle Ihre persönlichen Gegenstände mitnehmen. Sie haben jetzt noch bis 17:30 Uhr Zeit, vielleicht sich noch die Lastenräder draußen anschauen von unseren Ausstellern. Ansonsten schnell das Rad schnappen, sich in den Messepark begeben, denn um 17:30 Uhr ist ganz pünktlich Abfahrt mit Polizeieskorte. Es geht zum Maria-Hilfer-Platz. Dort wird dann die offizielle Abfahrt für das Cityradeln sein. Wir werden dann 2 Stunden unterwegs sein. Es gibt natürlich eine kleine Labstation für einen Zwischensnack. Und um 19:30 Uhr am Maria-Hilfer-Platz 2 gibt es dann das gemeinsame Würstelessen mit Bier. Ganz, ganz wichtig, greifen Sie nochmal zu Ihrem Namensschild. Das ist Ihre Freikarte für das Bier und für das Essen. Also bitte unbedingt den Badge mitnehmen. Der ist bares Bier wert in diesem Fall. Danach 20:30 Uhr die Antenne-Party Best of the 80s, genau, Best of the 80s, Best of the 90s. Gesponsert von Antenne im Grazer Dom im Berg. Das ist wirklich eine ganz, ganz besondere Location. Das sind die ehemaligen Katakomben der Festung, sind nicht immer geöffnet. Das ist wirklich etwas Besonderes, dass heute für uns diese Party dort stattfindet. Die Termine für jene, die nicht mit zum Radfahren gehen, 19:30 Uhr Würstelessen, 20:30 Uhr die Kalorien wieder wegtanzen. Und jetzt wünsche ich einen wunderschönen Abend und hoffe, Sie sind morgen in alter Frische wieder dabei.